Maybe I should make like a one. I'll do a. What's KarQ up to? I'll just, hey, you want to do like a one obscure tip for every hero series?
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is KarQ, and quickly before this video starts, I want to remind everyone with a Battle.net account to log in and vote for your country's community lead and general manager for the Overwatch World Cup 2019. Of course, if you're from Canada, Jayne and I are candidates for these roles, so click the link in the description to do so if you haven't already. Speaking of Jayne, he has joined us for today's video.
Thanks, KarQ. It's true, I am the man they call Jayne, assistant coach for the Dallas Fuel and last year's head coach for Team Canada. Here to bring you one obscure tip for each and every single hero. Some of these clips include weird interactions with other heroes, other involve hitbox manipulation, the physics and the game engine of Overwatch itself, and other just involve weird frame manipulation and animation cancels. I would just like to put a disclaimer on this video that these are not the most obscure tips that we could possibly think of, simply the most obscure tip that is still useful.
And in true Overwatch Team Canada spirit, we'll take turns co-commentating, so Jayne, take it away.
D.Va's technique is involving a double melee. You can cancel the booster by meleeing at any point in time. However, if you melee early enough, while D.Va is still entering the booster animation, you can both get the boost damage and the melee damage at the same time during a single activation of boosters, which can either be done during a U-turn or a vertical maneuver. Moving on to Orisa, especially now that we're starting to see more bunker compositions in ranked, it's important to know that if a halt is activated on you and you activate your Fortify partway through the animation, you will maintain the momentum instead of being stopped at the location of the enemy's halt. This can be both beneficial and harmful to you depending on whether you wanted to reposition or stay behind cover with your team.
With Reinhardt, you can actually free yourself from a Zarya Graviton Surge using your Earth Shatter. However, most people don't notice this because they are usually grabbed on the ground, and when they hammer down, they just get sucked back in. So in instances where you're grabbed and elevated off the ground, like on a wall or column, the Earth Shatter animation will pull you out successfully and you'll stay out. One of the characters that has a lot of misinformation is Roadhog's ultimate. His whole hog pellets do not have any fall off damage, and the only reason why it appears you do less damage the farther a target is away is simply due to the spread and less pellets connecting on the target. It's also important to note that the spread pattern is actually 5 circles across a horizontal plane, not a big circle or oval. This means that if you're blasting multiple targets, you can actually just aim in between them all instead of singling one out to maximize its effectiveness. For Winston, when you jump off of high ground, your landing animation will create a loud thump. However, you can mitigate this by holding the jump key and crouch as you're falling. Use this to drop off of high ground and sneak behind people who won't see or hear you coming until you zap them with your Tesla cannon.
For Wrecking Ball, if you can find a location in which you can use your grapple beneath a high ground and still access that high ground without breaking the grapple, you can do what's called a blender technique, which is of questionable usefulness, but still absolutely hilarious if you pull it off in a ranked game. You can spin around in a circle, constantly maintaining the fireball. Combo this with a bunker, and if anybody was trying to dive or dislodge your Bastion comp, they're going to be going into a Wrecking Ball that is flaming and knocking everybody away from the Bastion, keeping him safe.
On Zarya, rocket jumping, both secondary fire then jump, and jump then secondary fire, is absolutely faster than walking and should be used every time you respawn in order to return to the fight quicker.
Ashe's sidekick Bob can actually be used in a lot of ways similar to D.Va's self-destruct. Most notably, you can use walls in order to slide your bomb across them before they continue in their intended direction. Using Ashe, you can do a very similar thing if you launch yourself vertically using the coach gun and then activate Bob at a slanted surface like a rooftop. Used on maps like Junkrat, you can thread the needle and manage to place Bob in a perfect location. Additionally, just like D.Va's bomb, if Bob is either misplaced or the opponents walk around a corner in order to take cover, if you walk right up to Bob so that you're touching him and then walk forward and backward in rapid succession, you can actually nudge Bob around so that people who were previously safe from Bob behind cover are now getting, well, a bunch of British Omnic bullets to the face. When you're playing our Omnic friend Bastion, both the reload time in Sentry as well as Recon mode is going to be 2 seconds. However, his transformation only takes 0.5 seconds. So whether you're using it to reposition or simply continuously firing, it's going to be higher damage output if you fire until you want to stop or you run out of bullets, immediately transform, which will take 0.5 seconds, shoot for 1.5 seconds, and then transform back into Sentry form. This will take 0.5 seconds longer than just having reloaded, but will give you 1.5 seconds more of shooting. Another way to look at this tech is simply that you never actually have to reload on Bastion, and that can be an efficient way of playing him. One of the key ways to get more value out of Doomfist is to learn how to be hyper mobile with him. One of the most advanced techs that is still practical is going to be the turn punch. After you have released a charged punch on Doomfist, you can move the camera around to some extent. However, the maximum angle that you can turn it left or right is limited. The best way to pull off this technique is to charge up your punch, and then as soon as you release the punch, flick your camera to the maximum camera angle, either left or right. At this point, you will be able to see and line up what point you want to actually turn your punch. Once your camera has seen the new angle and direction you want to go, pressing space will end the punch forward momentum, it will end the lock, and it will send you in the exact direction that you are looking when you press space, with all of your momentum carried through to that new angle.
A lot of Genjis are taught to animation cancel secondary fire immediately with dash. This isn't wrong and definitely has its uses, but we just want to share other combo options. Programmatically, Genji has an internal cooldown between shurikens, so if you opt for secondary fire into dash into secondary fire again, you'll be slightly slowed down by a minor delay, and very often that first secondary fire doesn't get that much value anyways at mid to long range. At best, maybe like 1 shuriken hits. Instead, just keep in mind the option of using dash by itself, which should allow you to immediately throw out your shurikens without being penalized, and in theory deal more burst DPS.
On Hanzo, one of the situations you'll find is usually being outclassed by a Widowmaker, who of course at similar ranges theoretically has an advantage over you being hit scan instead of projectile. So the idea is, in order to peek around the corner and as you jump past this corner with your crosshair lined up on where the Widowmaker is, as soon as you've crossed that corner, you loose your arrow and then you lunge back behind cover. Because lunge has the ability to instantly change the direction of your momentum, she's only going to be able to get a shot on you if she's either pre-firing or has sights and sees your jump coming. Even if she does, the timing of it will have to be extremely precise, as she may be aiming further into the arc or the peak if she doesn't know you're using this tech against her. Junkrat's use of his concussion mines is probably one of the most misunderstood abilities in the entire game. A lot of abilities in the game are omnidirectional, however Junkrat's mine, amongst others, is not. Now Junkrat's mine has an explosion radius. Anybody who is caught in the explosion radius of Junkrat's mine, regardless of where in the radius they are, above, below, or to the side somewhere, they will be knocked vertically at a 45-degree angle away from the concussion mine. You cannot, and the opponent cannot, be knocked downwards at any point in time by being inside the explosion radius of a concussion mine. You can use this to cross gaps even if the mine is actually above your head.
With Mccree, it was tough coming up with an obscure tip, so we've opted to remind you guys that Deadeye reloads your ammo. With the new increased fire rate, it may be worthwhile to use this tech to pull off 18 straight shots, right? 6 to start, roll, then 6, then Deadeye cancel for 6 more. At the end, your roll almost comes back off cooldown as well, making it nearly 24 shots.
One of the more commonly misunderstood things about Mei's Blizzard is that it is actually affected by line of sight. Now, the very notable exception to this rule is going to be Mei's Wall. Although Mei's Wall normally blocks line of sight to every other ability in the game, such as Transcendence, Sound Barrier, and D.Va's Self-Destruct, Mei's Wall, both friendly and enemy, will not affect the line of sight effects of Blizzard. An extremely simple but very underutilized tip on Pharah is that you can cancel the firing animation of a rocket with Barrage itself in order to do more damage. Additionally, Barrage will reload Pharah's gun, So if you're going to be firing with the last rocket in your magazine, you can animation cancel that into a barrage, and then during your barrage, maintain holding your primary fire button. This means that during the barrage recovery animation, you will also fire out another rocket and greatly increase your damage output.
With Reaper's new Shadow Step, you can now reposition back up to safety if you ever get booped off the map.
The obscure tip that I have for you on Soilder is a little bit of a niche one, but it can surprise people when used correctly. Because there is no delay on the acceleration of Soilder's sprint, if you very rapidly flick your camera 90 degrees and then activate jump while sprinting, you will gain that momentum. Immediately canceling your sprint, which will be easier if you're using hold to sprint instead of toggle to sprint, allows you to start the recovery animation so that you can fire partway through the jump, but maintain the lateral momentum given to you by sprint. If done extremely rapidly, this should allow Soilder to jump strafe 1 or 2 meters farther than if he didn't use the tech.
On Sombra, we'd like to remind you that Translocator purges everything and acts like a cleansing ability. This would include, but not limited to, Ana's anti-nade, her bullet damage over time, Ashe's dynamite, Zenyatta's discord, Mei's freeze ticks, and so on and so forth.
For Symmetra, what's referred to as turret bombing is a very common technique for Symmetra players in ranked. Turret bombing normally involves placing all 3 of your turrets onto the ground and then placing the teleporter to send them into a backline in an attempt to assassinate a squishy. However, on some maps, trying to set up in areas where you can actually launch these turrets at the opponent is either going to put you in danger, or it's going to put the turrets in the line of fire in a way that they're going to be destroyed before you can actually attempt a turret bomb. To get around this, what you can do is you can actually place the turrets on the wall or the corner itself. Doing this allows you to catch people off guard and prevents them from being able to interrupt your turret bomb attempt without themselves getting very, very out of position.
For Torb, the timer for his molten goop to disappear only begins when it actually hits the floor. Therefore, you can launch a few in the air to extend its uptime and surprise some enemies.
Hitbox manipulation is going to be a great technique for you to learn on Tracer. Most people will be just strafing in an AD pattern, or left, right, left, right. However, because Tracer actually leans into the direction that she's moving when she's strafing, and then stands quite tall when she's standing still, instead of doing left, right, it could be left, pause, left, pause, in order to really manipulate her hitbox and throw people off who might be expecting a standard strafe pattern. Additionally, when you do finally run out of blinks, Tracer is one of the best characters there is for being able to hide her hitbox. Simply turning 180 degrees and looking at the ground will hide the vast majority of your head hitbox from your opponent. If you want to see just how powerful techniques like these are when mastered, just take a look at this clip. A lot of purists on Widowmaker really ignore the power of her Venom Mine. If you use it in an area like the windows at Hanamura, you can shoot through the mine when dueling an opposing Widowmaker, even if they had landed a headshot with a perfectly lined up crosshair. The only thing they will accomplish is destroying your Venom Mine. This will give you essentially 1 free life in a Widowmaker duel. This can be used in a lot more locations than just the Hanamura windows. You can use it on any wall, or for example, you can use it on top of railings. This is really broken. Use it while you can.
For Ana, the obscure tip here is that for some reason, reloading is slower at 0 ammo. It's not a game-changing delay by any stretch, but it's always something to keep in mind.
When you're playing Baptiste, sometimes it can be hard to accurately place your immortality field, especially at longer distances. However, this becomes a lot easier when you realize that Baptiste's right-click healing nade actually has the exact same arc as his immortality field. However, Baptiste's immortality field will actually contact the skybox. Now this is useful for a couple reasons. The main reason is that this allows you to be reactionary to things like Sombra's EMP. If thrown vertically, Baptiste's immortality field will take between 1.5 and 2.5 seconds to return to the ground. One of the most important things for you to know on Brigitte is how to trigger her Inspire so that you have the highest healing uptime possible. Normally, Brigitte can only trigger her Inspire by damaging players. You cannot trigger your Inspire by just attacking or whip-shotting something like Torbjörn's turret or Symmetra's teleporter. You can, however, trigger your Inspire by either whip-shotting or attacking Wrecking Ball's mines. I don't know why this is, but Hammond's mines are the only non-player entity that Brigitte can still use to proc her Inspire. For Lucio, a lot of the skill on the hero comes from your ability to wall ride effectively, and although this is a skill with a very large number of techniques, the one that is probably least known is that the camera angle at which you look at affects the altitude change when wall riding and wall hopping. If you are specifically trying to get through things like door frames, it's very useful to look almost directly vertical at the ground in order to not get as much vertical component to your wall ride. However, if you are trying to climb out of, say, like a pit or get altitude to escape, looking vertically will give you a higher component of height after your wall hops, allowing you to climb higher faster.
Alright, for Mercy, there's an extremely difficult tech you can pull off that allows you to Guardian Angel backwards. A lot of Mercy players may have accidentally done this in-game, but trust me when I say I spent many hours with people trying to replicate it consistently to no avail. I managed to pull it off a few times, and I think I understand the theory behind it though. So the way I understand it is that Guardian Angel has this little sweet spot which allows this to happen, which is about 4 to 5 meters away from your target, and visually if you look you'll see you need to be about this far from your target. You're also going to need to be slightly above them, so you need to jump in and press forward at first. But before you land you need to exit this little sweet spot by pressing backwards. Then Guardian Angel while also holding onto that backwards key. You'll still fly forward at first, but then you need to immediately cancel it with your jump key. Now this would normally slingshot you forward, but if you're in that sweet spot and hit the timing just right, the GA cancel will instead bounce you backwards. Now I may be talking out of my ass, so if anyone knows exactly why this happens along with a way to replicate it reliably, please leave it in the comments or DM me, seriously. For Moira, if you just tap your healing juice on someone for just a single frame, they will gain 65 HP over 4 seconds. However, this isn't just a great way to conserve your healing resource meter, because you can actually pre-heal someone, such as dive tanks and flankers, before they go off and do their thing.
We are going to be introducing another hitbox manipulation when it comes to Zenyatta. Now, although it doesn't look like this at all from the first-person perspective, when Zenyatta finishes off a charged right-click, his head ducks down quite extremely. However, you can make his head hitbox even lower if you add a crouch into that movement. It's actually such an extreme displacement of the head hitbox that if a Widowmaker was not only aiming at your head, but your neck, what would have previously been a neck shot will be a complete miss.
And that's all the obscure tips and tech we have for you today. Jayne, of course, is on Twitch and YouTube with educational Overwatch content, which are linked in the description. And before we go, we have a parting message.
Thank you, KarQ. That, of course, is correct. KarQ here, you know him, you love him. He's running for the community lead position for Team Canada. And I myself, although I ran for head coach last year, I'm running for the general manager of Team Canada this year. If you did enjoy the video, of course, leave a like, but also, if you're Canadian and you enjoyed the video, consider supporting us in our campaign to lead Team Canada to victory at the 2019 World Cup. Thank you, have a great day.